Good day, welcome back to another cubic function lesson with Mr. Simons. Now we're doing number 6-7 or 6-7 of worksheet 1,14 foundation practice, substitution, etc. But here we're focusing on, can we find the x values of our stationary points? Now again, what we need to look out for, triggers. So function notation, if you say f2, f minus 1, f3, we're just testing, can you substitute the x value correctly in the equation and find the y value of the coordinates, etc. And I use the word point of contact, first derivative, etc. We need to know I'm going to use the first derivative to find gradients or slopes. All right. And yeah, as I said, we need to understand the difference between the two, whether I'm getting points or gradients. So when I say points, to get the y value, we'll always go into the original equation. But if we want gradients or etc., we're going to use the first derivative. So let's look at number 6, then number 7, 6, 7. So given f of x equal x cubed minus 9x squared plus 27x plus 37, determine the x values of f prime x equal 0. So we want to know whether the first derivative is equal to 0. That automatically means we're finding the x value of the stationary points or the turning points of the cubic function. So we're given x cubed minus 9x plus 27 plus 37. We're required to find first derivative. So first derivative, 3 times 1 gives me 3. 3 minus 1 gives me 2. 2 times negative 9 gives me negative 18. 2 minus 1 gives me 1. And 1 times 27 gives me 27. X falls away. And the constant becomes 0. So 1 mark for first derivative. First derivative must be equal to 0. So a first derivative equal to 0, meaning that y value of the first derivative is 0, so we're finding x-intercepts. Right, so there, common factor, 3 divided by 3, 1. Negative 18 divided by 3 gives me negative 6. 27 divided by 3 gives me 9. Right, if we factorize, x squared is x times x, 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 gives me positive 9. But minus 3x gives me minus 6x. So therefore, x minus 3 equals 0, x equals 3. So the x value there is 3. 1 mark first derivative, 1 mark factors, 1 mark for correct answer. All right. So hope you follow. Let's look at the next problem. Given f of x equal minus x cubed plus x squared plus x minus 3. Determine the x values of f prime x equals 0. So technically I want x values of the turning point when the first derivative, the y value of that equals 0. So again, we first find the first derivative. 3 times minus 1 gives me minus 3. 3 minus 1 gives me 2. 2 times 1 gives me 2. 2 minus 1 gives me 1. 1 times 1 gives me 1. X falls away. And minus 3 being a constant falls away. Alright, there I'm going to make x squared positive because a lot of you will struggle to factorize with the negative. Prime is 0, so I have 3x squared minus 2x minus 1. 3 is a prime number, so it can only become 3x times x. Minus 1 can only be positive 1 times negative 1. That gives me minus 3x. Plus 1x gives me negative 2x. So 3x plus 1 equals 0. If I take positive 1 over, it becomes negative 1 divided by 3. X minus 1 equals 0. If I take negative 1, x equals 1. Right, so I hope you follow. I hope you enjoy the worksheet, and I hope you come to understand and you are collecting these marks. So yeah, I expect you to get a mark for first derivative. If you're struggling to factorize, you're allowed to use the quadratic formula. So technically you should be able to get that mark. Right? And that mark there. Right? Wish you nothing but the best. Only way to succeed in maths is to practice, but you have to practice the patterns that are given. Right? And the questions we ask. These worksheets I've set up according to what's in your past exam papers. God bless. Bye.